Alright guys, so the 2010s was an absolute crazy time in the world of cameras. You had the revolution of the digital cinema camera, you had DSLRs like the 5D Mark II and III that could shoot 1080p 24 progressive frames. You had drones that were readily available to the public and actually got some really good footage you could put into your projects, and that's just naming a few milestones. Alright, we're gonna walk inside to finish up this video. But fast forward 12 years, 2 DSLRs, 3 mirrorless cameras, 5 drones, 18 lenses, 3 kids, 1 wife later, in 2023, I decided to take a crack at owning one of Red's cameras. And that's why I purchased the Red Scarlet X. Now, if you've watched my videos, you know that I'm a huge cheerleader and proponent of this camera system and of this camera in particular. But I've done very little talking about the drawbacks and the negatives of the camera, and I thought that I was doing you a disservice by doing that. So this video is going to be talking about any of the things you might want to think about that might be negatives or drawbacks before you seek one of these unicorn cameras that will soon be extinct. Now, before we get into the drawbacks, I do want to ask a favor. Please do go down and subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your support has been overwhelming, and I really appreciate everybody. You've helped me grow as a filmmaker and as a YouTuber, so for that, thank you. The first thing is going to be the outdated technology. Although this was revolutionary whenever it came out in 2012-ish, it does have some drawbacks in 2023. The sensor is a Super 35mm sensor, and although the sensor is beautiful and I love the sensor, to be honest, it does not do great in low light, and you can only shoot 4K up to 30 frames per second. You can get higher frame rates, but you're going to be dropping down the resolution and cropping in on the image. The next thing, guys, is compatibility issues. As the years go by, accessories and modules for this camera become harder and harder to find. Some of the things to mention are going to be like the media module on the side that you see here, where you put your media in. You have to buy that separately from the body unless you can find it with it already on. The monitor is a separate unit. The side handle on the other side here is separate. This module on the back where I'm mounting this gold mount battery is separate. So just something to think about going forward. Whenever you buy the camera, it's not like your normal mirrorless camera where you can basically throw a lens on it and start shooting. You do have to outrig it with a lot of proprietary accessories, and these accessories are becoming harder and harder to find. Now that brings me to the media storage that you will need for these cameras, and that is the Red Mag system. It's these little proprietary SSDs. I personally love these SSDs because of how well they're built, but one drawback is they are expensive and they are getting increasingly harder to find. So just another thing to think about before you purchase this camera. Okay guys, the next drawback is going to be support and maintenance. If you've been in the camera news lately, you know that Nikon has purchased Red, but even before that, Red was no longer servicing this line of cameras. So finding someone to fix them was kind of few and far between. There are some people online, but it's something to consider. It's not like your Sonys or your Canons, even the older models, where you could contact the company, send it in for repairs. Even though it might cost you an arm and a leg, you could still have it done. This is not even an option with these cameras. It does depend on what kind of shooter you are. Are you a solo shooter like myself? Do you work with a small team, which I do sometimes, 2 to 3 people? Do you shoot with a big crew? These are things to consider because of things like the battery life. Whenever you get this camera, you're most likely going to get red volt batteries, which are almost obsolete. They're just so old and they don't work really well. They go in the hand grip here or on a back module. I have about 4 or 5 of them, and they won't even hold a 2-minute charge. So what I have purchased, and it took a little while to find, was this wooden camera plate that allows me to add these gold mount batteries. And the battery life with these is pretty good, but it's just another thing and another expense that you're going to have to think about whenever you're thinking about purchasing one of these DSMC cameras. Another drawback that I've seen with a lot of people who dove in and bought one of these cameras and then ended up selling it months later was the weight and size. Now, if you're trying to get a camera to fly on a gimbal, say a Ronin S2, 3, or 4, or you aren't used to carrying a really heavy camera, then this is probably not the camera for you. This is a very, very heavy camera, especially after you rig it out with all the accessories that you'll need to do a normal project. For me, I do documentaries and they're mostly handheld. So, and actually they're all handheld, and this camera is great for that because of the weight. I get more stable shots and I personally don't mind it. And for longer shoots, I have an easy rig which I can use to stabilize the footage a little bit and take the load off of my arms and put it more on my core. But just something to think about. This is a super heavy camera, and so if you're not somebody who already has that in mind going into it, really think about, are you going to want to lug this camera around every single day or on your shoots for long periods of time? Okay guys, let's get into one of my favorite things, but could be a huge drawback for a lot of people, is the Kodak and the RAW footage format. So this does not currently shoot any ProRes or compressed file formats. This thing only shoots RAW. So it's not like, say, Blackmagic where you can shoot B-RAW, but you can also downgrade it to shoot ProRes or to shoot H.265 if you just need a quick edit. This is not that camera. This camera shoots RAW. The files are really big and the files have to be processed properly in post-production in order to get a good image. This is not going to be your go out, shoot an event, do a quick edit, and throw it up on social media camera. And that's why I primarily use this on my documentary films, because I do have a lot of time to edit in post-production. But just something to think about. You know, the name Red is attractive. We love the footage that we see coming from these cameras, but keep in mind this camera only shoots RAW, and it's going to take a lot of time to learn how to color the footage. It probably took me 2 months to finally nail how to color this footage. So just another thing to consider. Now, do I regret buying this camera? Absolutely not. This has been such a joy to have. And for me, someone who loves to color grade, somebody who loves, you know, to really take their time with their footage on certain projects. Like I said, this is not my run and gun rig for shooting a quick video for one of my clients that needs to be done in a day or two. This is more for my really thought out, drawn out documentary projects. And it's also a part of history. So I'm very proud to be a Red owner. I'm proud to own this camera, and I will absolutely never get rid of this camera. Even when it just stops working, I just think it's a part of history, and I'm honored to be a part of that, because Red really did come into our space and shake it up, and they kind of raised the tide and raised the rest of the ship. So thank you so much, Red, and thank you to Nikon if you're watching this for, you know, picking up the flag and running with it. And I think that Nikon's going to do some great things with this. But yeah, I love this camera. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't just make awesome hype videos for it. I did want to tell you the major drawbacks, and now that you have those, hopefully you can go into the marketplace and make an informed decision on whether or not Red cameras, especially these earlier Red cameras, are for you. All right guys, one more time, please go down and subscribe for me and like the video. I really appreciate your support. I do tons of videos on cinema cameras, lenses, how I use these cameras to make money for me and my family, the business side of filmmaking, and all of that jazz. All right guys, before I go, I do want to remind you that we did just open the Epic Creative Store. So if you are a lover of photography and film and want to support the channel, go check out the store. The link is in the description below. Peace.